I actually think some of these figures are gonna shock you. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jade and in today's video I'm going to be spilling all the tea. I'm going to be telling you how much influencers get paid, and not just me and like how much I've gotten paid from my influencing channel before. I'm actually going to be telling you how much like the industry on average people are getting paid. So I'm hoping that if anyone's out there who's a budding influencer and they don't know how to charge, this video is going to really help them. And anyone who's out there who's just nosy, this video is going to be really interesting for you. I'm just reaching all angles, all audiences. So let's get to it. Okay, so before we kick off, I feel like I need to quickly give you background on who I am and why I have authority to talk about this type of thing. I work at an agency and I've hired tons of influencers and celebrities for huge international brands in the past. And a couple of years back, myself and my boyfriend started our own influencing channel called Orange Collective. I'll put a little screenshot here. We started that channel because we had loads of travel and like food content, but also because we both work in marketing and we kind of thought we could probably create a channel and get some brand partners fairly quickly, right? We were right. We used a lot of our experience, we put it to work. We found brand partners within like 3 months of starting the channel. Literally, we only had a couple thousand followers. And yeah, we've worked with a bunch of brands since, from like Heineken to MasterCard. We've been very fortunate. So now what I do is use all that experience to help budding influencers make it in the influencing world. So if you're ever interested in getting some help from me, drop me a DM. Okay, so now that that boring bit's over, let's talk about how much influencers get paid, and also let's talk about how and why I know this stuff, right? So this information is available to you too. This isn't a hashtag spons, first of all, but there's an agency called 76 Agency, and they recently released a report. It was called Lifting the Lid, the Influencer Pricing Report. I'll put a link in my description in case you want to download it, but I was made aware of this by a friend and I thought, this sounds like a bit of me, I'm going to download it and I'm going to read it. And then I thought, this sounds like a bit of you guys too, so I'm actually going to read it and then give you some of the best bits from it. But if you want the whole report, then I recommend downloading it yourself. Okay, so in this report, they basically survey like hundreds of influencers, and all these influencers submit how much money they've earned from brands anonymously, which means that they get like a really nice holistic view on how much these influencers are actually earning. And it's really interesting because they draw quite a few findings from this report, which some like quite, I wouldn't say shocked me, but saddened me. And others were just really interesting. And as like a part-time influencer myself, it actually woke me up, some of these figures, and made me realize like I sometimes in the past I've definitely undercharged myself. So you know, if that was useful to me, then I'm sure it's going to be really useful to you. So without further ado, let's get into the good stuff. So I don't want to beat around the bush and make you wait until like 15 minutes in before I tell you how much people earn. So I'm just going to tell you how much people earn now, and then after that I'm going to talk about some of the findings from the report, which are going to help you if you're a budding influencer, right? So drum roll. On average, right, if you have a good engagement rate, and this is key, and I'll come back to that later, if you've got a good engagement rate and you have between 1,000 and 5,000 followers, so you're categorized as a nano influencer, you will earn between £100 and £250 per post on average. Huge caveat here that in the report, a lot of brands actually said that they'd be unwilling to pay an influencer who had between 1,000 and 5,000 followers anything. They basically said, I am only going to gift you stuff, I'm not going to pay you anything, you don't have enough followers. I have mixed feelings about this because, as some of you know, if you followed me before, I have 2 brands, I've got 2 boutiques, and I both pay influencers and I gift them. The reason how I decipher whether or not I'm going to pay them versus gifting them isn't based on their follower count. It's more based on what the value they're offering me. And if you want more information about this, I'll link to a video up here where I talk about your value offering in a lot more detail. But basically, if there's an influencer who has 4,000 followers, but their photography is incredible, like we're talking about shots which I want to use on my website and campaign material because it's so good, then I'll pay them. Do you see what I mean? So because they've got that extra value of like their photography is amazing, in addition to having a few thousand followers, to me that is worthy of payment. But that's not always the case with everyone, and brands just tackle things differently. I want to know your thoughts in the comments, because this might be a bit of a controversial topic, because some people really fully believe that you should never ever you know, work for free for brands. And I do agree to that to some extent, but I think looking at it from a small business owner perspective, sometimes there are influencers who really are completely happy with getting a free item. And I'm in that bracket as well. Like a lot of the time when we work with brands on our Orange Collective account, they will be contra partnerships, which basically means that it's like value in kind. Like I'm working with them, they're giving me a free meal and I'm giving them exposure. So I think it really just depends on you and, you know, the influencers who you're working with and the brands. But I want to know your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to disagree with me. I don't mind. Lively debates are great. But that's the results for anyone who has between 1,000 and 5,000 followers. So let's see how that changes when you have a few more followers. So 5,000 to 10,000 followers, you can expect to earn between £250 and £450 per post or per collab. This was an interesting one because that is where Orange Collective sits, right? Because we've got about maybe like 7,500, 8,000 followers. And so, like, I don't even know where to start on that because there have been times where we've made twice that much and there's been times where we've made a quarter of that. And it mostly depends on how you've got the partnership. So whether it's a direct partnership with the brand or with the brand's influencing agency, that usually means that you're going to earn a bit more, or whether you got it through a marketplace like Tribe. For those of you who don't know what marketplaces are, they're basically like digital platforms which connect brands with influencers. So if you use a marketplace like Tribe, which we do quite often, you're going to earn a lot less than that, but the briefs are easier to get. So the benefits kind of outweigh the negatives. I'll put a link to Tribe below if you want to give it a go. But it's just very interesting to hear those because it almost makes me think, well, not almost, it makes me think we need to charge more sometimes. And also there are other things to take into account here. Once I get through all the different pricing brackets and the different amounts of followers and what that amounts to, I'll talk about the different variables which can impact how much money you're going to get paid. Right, so 10,000 to 20,000 followers. If I'm looking down, I apologise, it's just I'm looking at my laptop. You can expect to earn between £500 and £1,000, which I think sounds completely spot on. It's also a really decent amount of money. Clearly we need to be pushing into that 10,000 mark. Should I do a shameless plug? Can you guys all follow Orange Collective so that we can have 10,000 followers and charge more money? The link is in my description. Right, let's move on to 20,000 to 30,000 followers. You can expect to earn between £800 and £1,800. And then 30,000 to 50,000, £1,500 to £2,500. And then 50,000 to 100,000, I mean, you're looking at, what's this, £2,000 to £4,000 per collab. And then 100K plus, you're looking at £3,000 plus, which that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. It doesn't have like the mega like macro influencing costs in here, but I mean, I've heard of people earning anything from £10,000 for a post to £500,000 for a post. Those are like Kardashian Jenner level people, but it's money. It is money. So if there's anyone out there who just is sitting on a 100,000 follower account who's not charging that much, then you're missing a trick, babe. Okay, so let's talk about the different variables which are going to impact how much you're going to get paid. I think it's really important that influencers know this stuff because it's a really good way of negotiating more money and it's a really good way of figuring out how much money you should actually charge. So one thing which is going to massively impact how much you're going to get paid as part of your collabs is the contractual terms. There's a couple things what are relevant here. So there's things like your image rights. So this is basically when a brand is requesting certain usage of the image that you create for them. So some brands might only want to use your content on their social media channels. Other brands might want to use your content on billboards. And as you can imagine, it's going to cost them a lot more to purchase rights to your image so that they can use it on things like billboards and advertisements. So that is one way that you can charge a bit more money, but also there's things like exclusivity. If you want to know more about this contractual stuff, because there's a lot of things that influencers need to be aware of which they aren't, then I recommend checking out my hustle kit. I will put a link in my description. It's basically a 46-page ebook. Don't let the length put you off. It's got loads of charts and graphics in there, but it includes everything you would ever need to know to grow your channel, find brand partners, pitch to brands, and evaluate deals and negotiate more money. So if you're interested in that, then check out the link in my description. So just a quick one on exclusivity before we move into the next bit. What that basically means is that a brand might ask you for 6 months exclusivity, and what that will mean is that you won't be able to work with any of their competitors for the period of 6 months. So obviously that type of request demands more money. Another thing which will impact how much money is things like your deliverables. So they're basically what you actually need to create as part of the collab. Do they want an IGTV, in which case that's going to cost a lot more money? Do they want a carousel post? That will be more expensive than just a single post. Do they want stories as well? Like, do they want to put your story on one of your highlights? All that kind of stuff is going to cost more money. And also your engagement rate. So I said I'd talk about this before, couldn't do this video without talking about it. It's actually interesting, there's a quote in the report from a brand, whereas they actually say, It's not always about following. Engagement rate is very important. Someone with 50,000 followers with a 1% engagement rate is not beneficial, but someone with 10,000 followers with a 15% engagement rate is getting put through. So that's from a brand actually said that. And another brand actually said, I pay more attention to the level of engagement rather than the follower count. Like, these are literally coming from brands who are hiring influencers are literally saying these things. So your engagement rate is incredibly important. If you want any tips on how you can improve your engagement, then I recommend checking out this video. I share my daily engagement routine, which helps me maintain a really decent engagement rate across all of my channels. Unfortunately, in the report, there were also findings from both agencies and from influencers and from brands that another thing that impacts how much you get paid is your race, which was the thing I was referring to at the start of the video when I said some parts of the report kind of saddened me. It didn't shock me though, and I think the fact that it didn't shock me is also quite sad. Do you know what I mean? But I'll read like a quick quote here this is from an influencer agency, right? So they work with brands quite often. So I found that a lot of fast fashion brands will only consider paying influencers with a certain aesthetic. It is very rare that they have agreed to pay a darker skinned content creator and will often say that they don't have budget. But they'll send another inbound email with a budget for a lighter skinned person. Fee-wise, these same brands will have very high deliverables. So those are the things I talked about before, like the IGTVs and loads of different posts, and require usage for e-commerce. So that links to what I mentioned before when I was talking about image rights. So that would be a brand wanting to purchase the right to their image so that they can include it on their website, social, etc., and not willing to pay adequately for the content and the usage. So isn't that sad? I hope that that will change. Reports like this are great because they bring to light some of the issues within the industry in terms of like the pay gap between different races. So, you know, the first step is always making these type of issues public and starting a conversation about them. So I encourage you to do the same and to bring that up, and also just to be like woke. Do people still use the word woke? Sometimes I use words and I'm like, oh God, Jay, you're getting old. No one uses that anymore. But just be woke, like, especially if you're a content creator and you feel like you are not getting paid your worth. And, you know, I'm not saying immediately assume it's down to your race or the color of your skin, but I just want you to be aware of that, you know? But also the other way around, like if you know a few influencers who are working with different brands and, you know, you're friends with them, don't be shy to ask them what they're getting paid. Like, I know this is an awkward thing to talk about and people don't like mentioning it, but I really think in industries like this one, being as upfront and sharing as much information as you can is what's important, because they're not regulated yet. Like, influencer marketing is still very new. So it's really important that we just talk to each other and make sure that, you know, we're all being paid a decent and fair amount. So hopefully this video will help towards that goal, and hopefully you found it interesting. If you are a budding influencer, I recommend watching this video. It's a fairly long one, so bring your notepad. It's very detailed, but I basically use my experience of hiring influencers to tell you exactly what you need to do to become an influencer in 2021. So thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in my next one.